Hey, what's up, everybody? We are live from the World Famous Venice Barbershop. I am here with my buddy Nathan Wonderman, and we're gonna do an awesome haircut, and we're gonna learn about anything he wants to talk about. And that's the beauty of being a barber, just absorbing and learning every single day.
Hey, hi, glad to be here. My pen name is Nate Wonderman. I am the Chief Comics Officer of WondermanComics.com, a boutique digital comic book publishing company. We have 83 issues out currently, available on your myriad of digital platforms.
Awesome, amazing. So let's get you locked in right here.
Oh, please help me out with this disaster up here.
What do you want to do on the haircut today? I know you did have a
what we did last time, and let me pull out my phone so we can sort of see what was
just need to move it.
no problem. What was done? Although here.
Perfect. Okay, really short.
And also, I went and did up top, but just like
Okay.
And this very much helped out with. I'm one of those people when they sleep in a strange way, I get the cow's lick blues because I have to lie on my side and turn over.
Yeah.
And my hair is such that between my two parents, I get sort of my dad's quasi thick Jewish hair and my mother's ultra fine Flemish hair, and it's kind of like, oh, it's not great either.
Yeah.
But c'est la vie.
Where are your parents from?
My father was born in Belgium, but his parents were Polish Jewish, and they came to Belgium in the 30s. And my mother's family are from Antwerp.
Okay.
Which sort of dovetails into my business because Belgium is kind of sort of well known for doing comic books, which is the business that I am in now. And when I grew up, I was very much both into U.S. and European comics, such as the European ones being Tintin, Asterix, Lucky Luke, which for any comic book reader, I would recommend highly. As a matter of fact, I think your kids, if they're of a certain age, at least 7 or 8, they will love Tintin and Asterix. And
Tintin, that's old school, huh?
Yes, it is. It was first published in the 20s by Hergé. Well, that's his pen name. His real name was Georges Remy. And he had a shop, and he was sort of like the teaching school for a lot of the great comic book artists on that side of the planet.
Interesting.
And what's great about Tintin, Asterix, and Lucky Luke is they're available in like 20, 30 different languages.
Yeah.
So say if you want your kids to read it, not just in English, but maybe in French, Spanish, you name it, they're available.
Wow. What Tintin was from what year?
Tintin first started out in the 20s, and the last Hergé album was produced in the 80s.
Wow. Sorry, Terry is
being a puppy, is being a dog. Okay, which is like, dogs rule. It's how they are.
I'm just trying to get.
We love dogs for what they are.
We're trying to get a good shot.
Oh, and by the way, both Asterix and Tintin had great doggy sidekicks.
Really?
Yeah. Tintin's, his name in French was Milou, which that didn't work too well in English. So in English, it's Snowy. Whereas Asterix, they had a dog there called Dogmatix.
Dogmatix.
Yeah. It was an ongoing pun with Asterix where they would do sort of like these names that were verbal puns.
Interesting.
Asterix, Obelix, Vital Statistics, Cacophonics. That was the bard who couldn't sing, who thought he was great. There was the old guy who was married to the young woman who's named Geriatrics.
Uh-huh.
All sorts of really funny little puns like that. And I'd have to say that sort of writing actually influenced where I write mostly sci-fi comic books,
Okay.
but I try to write with an element of tongue-in-cheek humor,
Okay.
which, especially now everything's so heavy and serious with the comic books. Oh, and it's like, okay, come on, try to have a little humor.
Yeah.
And I try to write that in my writing, because I don't write everything in my comics.
Yeah.
But the majority of my catalog is written by me.
Okay.
Written, created, edited by me. Ergo, as I said before, I am the chief comics officer of Wonderman Comics. If you can't have fun doing comic books, what's the point?
Yeah.
So,
how long have you been with Wonderman Comics?
Well, I started Wonderman Comics as an idea.
Mm-hmm.
Where like, oh, I really want to do this in the 90s, back when you were still had to shoot blue line film.
Yeah.
But then the computer revolution came along and really made it a lot more doable.
Yeah.
Sort of like, yeah, but it also got you into the curse and blessing of DIY, of where the tools make it DIY, where you can do it yourself,
Yeah.
which is that anybody can do it.
Yeah.
Which then means it's great and bad. It's kind of like punk rock. When punk rock came in, that's another thing I grew up really into punk rock, that whole DIY ethic, do it yourself, which is great because it produces the Clash and the Dead Kennedys, and also produces the generic hardcore band of the week that you saw Tuesday night at the Café de Grand back over. I don't know if you're familiar with that spot.
No.
It was a spot over in Hollywood. There was this really dumpy dive.
Okay.
That used to have 7 bands, $5 in the 80s. Or they even had Dollar Night.
Wow.
Where you'd see all these beginning bands going up there and making their noise for a half hour. In this place where the roof on the downstairs is even lower than here.
Wow.
Yeah.
$5.
Yeah. Where literally cockroaches, whole families of cockroaches lived and died in the sound system. This place was as 80s generic seedy ass punk rock in LA as it could get. But the spirit of, you know what? Let's go out, let's do this, and maybe, hey, we become good.
Yeah.
U2, that's what happened with U2. You should hear them describe how the first 4 years they made this, when they were 14, they made a horrid noise for years.
Wow.
But eventually they got better.
Yeah.
And that is, in a sense, what Wonderman Comics is.
Yeah.
Is where you start out, you make, so many mistakes, so many errors. And I certainly made a few in creating comics. But then through practice, you get better. And hopefully you get better. I don't know. Sometimes people still do the same stuff and it's not great.
Yeah, yeah. It's almost like life, huh? It's kind of the beauty of it.
Quite so. Quite so. And then you just do your comics, make them, and you hope that the audience likes them.
Yeah.
And then you put them out into various distribution channels, and you hope you get some traction.
That's awesome.
And
so now, in this day and age, writing a comic, like I'm thinking, when I think of comics, right? I think of the old, Superman stuff, the actual physical book.
Yes.
Like, is nowadays, like, what's the strategy distributing that? Like, are you looking to? Is it more digital?
Wholly digital, because now the problem with physical is that if you do physical, it's still printing and shipping is your 1 and 2 cost center.
Interesting.
And your ROI to make your money back, is at least 5 figures.
Wow.
Whereas with digital, the per unit what you make on those books and what you clear, is certainly less because, let's get real, the digital platforms, most of them are not, especially the for-profit ones, are not going to pay you all that well. The library apps are great, and they actually pay the rights holders a much better per unit rate than some of the usual digital suspects we know and loathe, and who shall remain unnamed, shall we?
For legal purposes. And
quite so. And which I would have to say, the great one I love of the library is Hoopla Digital.
Okay.
Because it's a user on demand, and it's free to the library card holder, and they actually pay out monthly.
Wow.
Yeah, which again in this digital world, so rare. But yeah, they're great, and it's on your phone, and they pay out. I love them. They're awesome. Too bad that not too many users use them, and instead use the usual suspects we know and loathe.
Yeah.
But yes.
So you've been writing since the 90s.
Yes.
How many comics have you put out?
83 issues.
Wow, nice.
Rough. I would say more than 1,000 pages of content, and of that, in those 83 issues, I have written over half.
Do you have number one sealed in a gold case?
No, and actually, gold you wouldn't want to store your comic in, because you need something that, for preservation, you want it in Mylar, airtight, and that doesn't attract moisture.
Okay.
Because especially with paper and that sort of thing, oh no, you don't want to be doing that. You want inert museum archival quality plastic, which is Mylar.
Okay.
Oh no, absolutely not. Plus, the problem with gold is people steal it.
Yeah.
Why they want to melt it down, even no matter what the form is. Like, for instance, the classic case is the Spanish, when they conquered the Aztec Empire. You know how many beautiful pieces of gold jewelry they destroyed to melt down?
Really?
Oh, yes. And how so little of it now survives. Because it was gold. So, just saying that, but that's my own commentary.
Yeah. That's cool. So 83 comics, man.
83 issues, minimum of 1,000 pages, yes, with my name, and oh yes, my ISBN number, the whole catalog, all of that. Yes. And when you first start out writing, it's a slog. Hell, it's a slog still, certain elements of it. But then you get better at some of it, and then it's sort of like, it's like if you practice anything else, you sort of work at the bits, and then you sort of say, okay, we're going to do here, and here, and you try to get some tools that help you get better. I use a character worksheet where you answer like 30 questions.
Okay.
About a certain character.
Okay.
And you want to do it for the major and some of the minor characters who are going to do something. And you just fill in what their personality is, what they're like, what their background is. And that really helps you with writing, hopefully helps you with writing who they are, writing in their voice. Because you don't want every character that you write to sound like you.
Yeah. What does that look like? Like the 30 questions, like what are some of the...
Where are they born? What was their class, socioeconomic status growing up? What are they now? What's their attitudes towards sex? What's their secret desire? What's their attitude towards religion? What's their... that sort of thing.
Interesting.
It's this whole 30 questionnaire that you fill out.
Yeah.
And what's good about it is it does a lot of that hard work thinking and creating that character. Does it make sense? Say if they're this, they have this attitude, how does it govern the way they're going to act in your story? Yeah. And so it kind of gives you a guide as to, all right, this is how they're going to react when this happens. This is how they're going to speak. Because another part of it is, what's their educational level? Yeah. What's their culture when they grew up? What's their culture now? And it's a great guide that I found really, really helps. And if you're going to write and have characters,
Yeah.
I would really suggest it.
Okay.
Suggest it strongly.
Yeah, I got to get that template from you. That sounds good, because you could almost outline, like Spider-Man, right? Peter Parker, right?
Yes.
Parents deceased, middle class, highly, really smart,
highly educated,
mm-hmm.
and you would also describe their best top 3 or 5 personality traits positive. You also describe the negative.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, it's a really simple template I have on MS Word.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing I do is you outline first.
Yeah.
And you just sort of do that. But yes, I would say the character worksheet has been an invaluable piece of I would almost say kit, tool, whatever you want to call it. It's just a simple MS Word document with some blank lines that you fill in. And one of the great things about it is it forces you to make decisions that make sense.
Yeah.
Both while you're creating that worksheet and then later on. And literally when you're writing, I would almost suggest print out what you have for that character and then keep it in visual sight, almost like you would a whiteboard, like a project whiteboard.
Yeah.
And then just say, all right, once you look at this, how are they going to react?
Yeah.
How are they going to do this because of this? A sort of like it would be part of, like, say, are you familiar with TV shows where they have something called a series Bible?
No.
Well,
yeah, can you explain that?
A series Bible is just a book saying, all right, this is who the characters are, this is how they got here, this is the world they're in, this is what they're doing, and that sort of thing. And in it, you would have a character worksheet for each of the major and supporting characters in your series.
Yeah.
And this is done on TV and whatever, and hopefully the writers adhere to the series Bible. But when you run on a plot, sometimes you deviate. And that's another thing, is you want to tell good stories that entertain, that say something.
Yeah.
Hopefully. But then, of course, you're not the ultimate judge of that. The audience is the ultimate judge.
Kind of like the whole Marvel universe right now, right? It's like Wolverine died, now he's back, and then they pulled him from this universe. And
well, that's because he's a character who draws butts and seats and views on streaming.
Yeah.
And the thing is,
I couldn't believe he died in Logan. I was just like, man, I didn't. I was like, what? Like, I remember watching it and it ended, and I was like, what was that? Like,
but at least they brought him back with
Deadpool.
Yeah, and at least they sort of broke the fourth wall and said, we're retconning now. Which at least they were smart enough about the eye wink on that one.
Yeah.
But then that's the thing with, okay, Disney bought up Marvel because their main business is that they're an IP management company. Mickey Mouse is an IP, Goofy, all of that. Star Wars, it's all IP, which they spend to make content.
Yes.
And that's what my business, although my business is nowhere near, not even remotely close to the Disney.
Yeah.
But I am essentially in the IP business.
Okay.
And that's because that's what creative art is these days.
Yeah.
It's intellectual property.
Is it, when you see IP, does like a light bulb go off? Like, do you just know when you like good IP? Like, you're like, I like, does
if it speaks to me, oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Isn't that's a great, there's some art sometimes, or a character or something that just really, I'm like, wow, I like this character,
Absolutely. And they're just, or you like types of characters.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I like this variation of this character. And the challenge then is not to overdo it on everything, because then they sort of become pastiche. And what's the difference between one and the other?
Yeah.
You sort of have to kind of discipline yourself if you can as a creator.
100%.
Just because if not, then it's like it becomes boring, variation on theme, and then you sort of become the comic book or writing version of like an oldies band.
Yeah.
Where, yeah, okay, if you have a market and you need to pay the rent, okay. I mean not to diss that market, because if you manage to get there in that very challenging space, which I would say I have an in-law who, yeah, was in a band that was on MTV in the 80s, and yes, he has a solo act, and then the band, they get together, they tour, but that set is not going to be anything new.
Yeah.
And because they're fans who help them make a fairly good living, which, especially now in music, is so challenging.
Mm-hmm. But now you got AI robots doing music, and it's
and I will say this as a point of pride: Wonderman Comics does not deliberately have AI in any of its artwork or writing.
Nice.
And actually, and I will say this, I do shout out Global Comics with an X at the end, because they actually were one of the first to put in their publishing backend saying whether you use AI or not in your comic book.
Wow.
Which I'm for that. There should be full disclosure of whether a publisher knowingly uses AI.
Yeah.
Now, that having been said, I've actually seen some portfolios where some artists hit you up for work and you go look and they say, wait a minute, did they use AI for that?
Yeah.
And right now, you can sort of, especially from the artwork side, you can sort of see it, but you have to be kind of discerning.
Mm-hmm.
What's scary, I would think, is say if it doesn't, and it gets better and better. Because right now, it kind of, I think the best way to describe it is this. You remember way back when in the 70s and when we saw Star Wars,
Mm-hmm.
and it was great. But then you sort of looked at, like, say, the motion graphic, and you sort of saw a little bit of that kind of that borderline, that green, that little green aura around that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's sort of that going on a bit with AI, but in a different sort of sense where it's like, oh, that face, yeah, I've seen it far too many times. That's AI all the way.
Mm-hmm.
But now you look at the effects, you don't see that little green line going around the Millennium Falcon anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the question is, will that happen with AI, or will AI turn into what's happened to sort of all the other thing that's been coming out of tech, like NFTs?
Yeah.
Will it become sort of like this thing du jour that had a moment and then all of a sudden goes away, like what the Web3 or NFTs or whatever else has been coming out from the tech sector?
Yeah.
Is it that's something, who knows?
Yeah, I think it's here to stay.
It could be certainly, because, but here's the problem with AI or just tech in general, and this is true: garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
And who's going to how should we say, determine what is garbage?
Yeah.
And then you sort of get into sort of that classic by Juvenal, in a sense, which said, quis custodiet ipsos custodes. Who watches those who watch?
Yeah.
Which, again, which, by the way, was used as something that was put on one of my favorite comics, Watchmen.
Nice.
Oh yeah, that's actually which I actually learned that from reading Watchmen, which, Alan Moore, amazing, great comic.
What can you say about, so tell us about some of the characters you developed.
Please, thank you. Well, yeah. I've got several. My two main comics are multi-character, the ensemble pieces, sci-fi, One's
Okay.
called EI, where it's literally a crew of humans and talking animals.
Nice.
Where there's like that one has over 20 different main characters. And then the other one is called Time Core, CORPS, where there's an ongoing crew of like about 7. And so I guess more of the question is, what type of character do you want to know about?
Yeah. Who's your favorite character that you've
Create?
created that I don't know, you enjoy?
Okay, well, here's one. This one's a bit challenging because I'm actually writing how should we say, a spin-off sort of, where for the Time Core, I'm writing something called Time Core Personnel File, where I'm writing about the executive assistant of the head of the section of the Time Core. Her name is Marika Gallo.
Marika Gallo.
Yeah, Marik. Marik. Same way the song Marik by Jacques Brel. Yeah, and she is sort of like his personal assistant, but then he dies in this recent bit, and so she has to take over. And so, and the thing is, so she's a strong character who's kind of underestimated, and she's sort of like, oh yeah, no, and she's one. And I wrote her as somebody who came from a working class background, who through smarts betters herself.
Okay.
Which that doesn't happen all that often.
Yeah.
Despite that whole Horatio algebra, however you want to do it, most time that does not happen. I mean, let's get real. 2/3 of billionaires, and that's probably underestimating, have inherited wealth, including all those we know and loathe.
Yeah.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. For the most part, quite depressingly so. And yeah, so that's about Marika. And then I would say also, like for EI, the main character, I gave him the same first name, creator's prerogative. It was narcissistic and indulgent. Yes. Yes, it was. And yes, I named his talking dog beside him after Chopper, my late dog. Of course. And he sort of is a comic book version of myself, a bit somewhat idealized, and he is the main character in my first comic that I created. Of course I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Why shouldn't I?
Yeah.
I know. And again, it's narcissistic and indulgent. I embrace it.
Oh, it's fun, man. I mean, that's the beauty of a comic, right? It's your imagination into whatever you want it to be.
Correct. And the ultimate judge are going to be the readers. Yeah. They can say, oh, you narcissistic, indulgent POS. Or, yeah, oh, wow, that's cool. That's fun. You're having fun with this. Yeah, hey, that was dope. Go for it.
Yeah, yeah.
And so you do that sort of thing. Or you just write other people where it's kind of like, I want to go and say, what would it be like if I get this particular sort of character? Like I have this one character in Time Core who is the station chief. His name is Gaius Equitus Brutus, who prefers living in the modern day as opposed to living to 200 BC era Rome. He much prefers being in the modern time.
Yeah.
As opposed to where he was living. Quite prefers it.
Wait, so one more time. He was living in Rome?
He was living during 200 BC. He dies. He gets decimated after a particularly bad performance of his crew. That's where the Romans, if your unit showed cowardice, they would then, as a punishment, 1 out of 10 of that unit would be killed. And the way you picked them is they would pick the straw, and then the one who drew the short straw had to then be beaten to death by the 9 others. Mm-hmm. That's where the expression drawing the short straw comes from.
Yeah.
And that's what happens to him. And in part of the thing of the Time Core with that is that if you're not good enough for heaven or bad enough for hell, you get put in the Time Core, and your performance, to quote, determines your final disposition.
Yeah.
do you go to heaven or hell after your performance in Time Corps? And he becomes a station chief for the Venice Beach Station circa 2002. And he quite likes modern times.
Yeah.
He enjoys it.
Yeah.
And he doesn't call himself Gaius, he's Gary in this time. Well, 20 years ago. And he enjoys it.
And so he's now in current day, this Roman.
He was a cavalry centurion.
Okay.
But now he's a station chief.
Yeah.
Or not station chief, it's sort of like, yeah, the station chief. Because they have a supervisor, Prunella Jones. Oh, that's another character I like, who used to be a DMV clerk. Yeah, who was working at a DMV, but then got killed by a guy who on her screen said, pull his license, and she did. And he went back into his car and shot up the DMV.
Jesus.
Hey. But and she winds up being a sort of like their supervisor at the office.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's what I try to do with Time Corps is the first time you see most every new character, or at least the issues that I wrote, you see how they died. That's your introduction.
Wow. That's kind of crazy, right? Because, and then you start off through the whole journey, like, or I mean, how do you begin the story with their death? You know?
Generally, you sort of look at where the supervisor, her name is Prunella Jones, and she's a black lady. I know, it was a challenge for me initially writing for a black lady from Southern California, but I think I found her voice decently enough. And she initially she's like, okay, got to staff the station. Who have we got? And then they look at a file, and then you do a transition, and boom, she says, oh, so how'd they come about to do this?
Yeah.
And so the Time Corps, we have a Russian countess who was a spy for the Tsars when Napoleon invaded Russia. Paulina Popova. We have Garibaldi di Livorno, who is a dance hall gigolo, who gets his brains blown out by Al Capone. We have Gaius Equitus Brutus. And then we also have Smoke Jaguar, who was a Mayan ball player, where the Mayans played, I forget the name of it. It's this something hard in Mayan.
Yeah.
Where they played that precursor to basketball.
Yeah.
Where they do that rubber ball through the hoop.
Yeah.
But the thing is, at ceremonial important things, what would happen is that the losing team would be sacrificed.
Okay.
On the altar.
Wow.
Yeah. And of course, his team lost to a team led by his son, who was angry that he remarried so soon after the son's mother died.
Wow.
You know, they had a little bit of business going on. So, and that's sort of the details you try to write in when you do your character worksheet.
Yeah.
Kind of give it some richness, some motivation.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, the bit about where the son is jealous because dad remarried too soon. Okay, it's not the most original motivation at all.
Yeah.
But hey, it works, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy.
You know, just and that's kind of sort of what you want to try to that quality, that sort of richness, that where the suspension, because I mean in sci-fi you're already working with a suspension of disbelief.
Yeah.
And that's just a bit of a thing.
Yeah.
Quite so. And that kind of thing. And then another here, you tell me whether you think this is a good title. I just wrote another 3-issue miniseries for this murder mystery comic, take place in Las Vegas in the 90s, called Brain Drain.
Brain Drain.
Yeah. Which
like it.
Oh yeah. And there, the main character is, her name is Griselda Marquez.
Griselda Marquez.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like what was the Colombian drug lord lady?
Griselda Blanco.
Blanco.
Yes. Griselda Blanco. Although she's a different character, wholly.
Yeah. Let me know on the length right here on the sides and then the top.
The lengths can be as short as you think is relevant.
Okay.
Is doable, and then the sides, if we can forestall, but still, how should we? I know it's a little touchy in terms of just because I am lacking up there because I'm an alta which means old shitter in Yiddish.
Do you want to go shorter on
shorter, but certainly, but still covers up enough of this back here as is viable within, how should we say, your professional judgment.
All right.
I will leave you to your professional judgment, please.
All right.
Yeah. Yes, Griselda Marquez, whom is what I would say an outcast member of Las Vegas Metro PD Homicide Squad. Of course, it's the 90s. She would be. And of course, she's lesbian. But she kind of hides that from her parents.
Yeah.
And she very soon gets assigned a dog of a case where the murderer is doing, guess what?
Yeah. Yeah. What is he doing? Sorry. Terry. Yeah, what is he? Sorry, one more time.
Where the is literally draining brains.
Wow.
Which actually the Egyptians did that as part of the mummification process. I remember I actually looked up, I don't remember the word, where they would poke the nasal cavity and the brain would drain out.
Oh, wow.
Because the Egyptians actually knew if you wanted to preserve the body, you had to get rid of the internal organs.
Dang. It's crazy.
They actually knew that when they were doing mummies, starting with the late era, I think it was the late era Old Kingdom, which you're talking 2500 BC or so.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and so she eventually finds this murder mystery, and oh my, at the end, it's a big nasty, and the climax is quite good, and it's actually the latest comic I have out, and what's actually good about, I would say, the way it's done, or that compute technology helps, is that the artist who did it is in Italy.
Wow.
And when he drew something, after we were fine with the way the art worked and whatever, he just uploads it to Dropbox.
Yeah.
And then my colorer and letterist, who lives out here, she does her bit to it. Coloring, flattening, coloring, lettering. Then we do the text edits. And then you put everything in InDesign. You then do an output for an EPUB or an PDF, and you upload to your platforms, and you have a comic book.
Nice. So how big is the team? How many people?
Usually the team is going to be is like 3 or 4 people.
Okay.
Minimum 3.
Okay. And then how often are you putting out a new comic?
Well, as soon as I can get them done, because one of the things I've found, unfortunately, is if you become a slave to the schedule pinwheel. I don't put anything or schedule anything until it's fully in the can, done.
Okay.
Because people fall behind, people get sick, all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And if you go and promise it and then it's late and you don't deliver, that just kills. And it also kind of disrespects your audience, saying, coming out now, and then, sorry.
Yeah.
No. It's better to have everything done in the can and then out it comes.
Okay.
So we try to have everything roughly like every other month, come up with something new, but we'll see. But like I said, that's what we're doing now, is building the backlog.
And where's the best place to check out like your new releases?
For free, Hoopla Digital
Okay.
via your local, which you can get if you have from a public library, LA Public Library, LA County Library, Santa Monica Public, if in Southern California, but any participating local public library in Canada, New Zealand, Australia as well.
Okay.
That have Hoopla Digital, you can, as well as a Overdrive, which you can do via the Libby app. Also, as well, Global Comics with an X at the end, which is an app which has an all-you-can-consume $9.99 per month, and their back end is good too in terms of reporting and paying.
And it's easy. Right. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, and it's on your phone.
Wow.
It is on your phone. And then, of course, Comixology, which is now part of Amazon, which means Amazon KDP. Kobo, which is in like roughly about 28, 29 different countries. Google Play and Books, wherever you get Google. And I know I'm probably forgetting Apple Books. They're on there as well, which is, but I would, and they're on all of those.
Nice.
And Drive Through Comics, which is the original online comic book shop.
Yeah.
And that's the one locale where you can actually determine whether your download will be either PDF or EPUB.
Yeah.
Which, determining upon the way you consume your digital comics, it depends what works better for you in your digital setup.
And then what would you say to any future comic creators out there? Like, what's your bit of advice?
Okay. When you're working with people, everything in writing.
Okay.
Apps, freelancer contracts, payment vouchers.
Yeah.
And also on your side, pay people what you say you're going to pay them.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then what about getting started? Like if there's a kid that wants to potentially start working on his own comic, or
if you're going to do art, if you're going to do the artwork, learn the basics of art, the golden mean, perspective, learn the rules about the human body, 8 heads. Learn how to draw eyes and hands, especially eyes. Eyes are the window of the soul. You need to learn how to make your characters act.
Interesting. Yeah.
Make sure you know how to render and give depth.
Yeah.
Because I see a lot of portfolios, and you see that they're missing that extra 5% to say, yeah, I want to hire you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, and you're going to have to work at it.
Yeah.
And really learn how to render, learn proportion.
Yeah.
Learn shadows, where light sources should be.
Yeah.
Learn all of that and be consistent with your artwork. Be really, really consistent. From the writers, write every day, even if you write garbage.
Yeah.
Really maintain the writing discipline, no matter what, even if actually, like, for instance, do you know who David Simon is?
No.
He was the creator of The Wire.
Okay.
And he once told me that he keeps up his writing discipline no matter how bad he feels. Yeah. And his writing discipline is he would wake up and write every day from 6 to 8 in the morning. And he even did it one day after he went drinking, woke up, was completely hungover.
Yeah.
And literally he got up and wrote anyway. And then a few days later, he took a look at what he wrote. There was no vowels in any of the words.
Wow.
But he still went ahead and did it anyway because it's keeping up the discipline. You have to do it all the time.
Yeah.
No matter how much of a drag it is, quite frankly. You know, because that's what sort of separates the wannabes from the willbees.
Yeah, yeah. Any final note you want to close out on?
Please check out wondermancomics.com. WUNDER comics.com. WUNDERMAN comics.com. Please. And thank you very much for having me on this platform.
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
And thank you
with
for
us.
the haircut.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you guys for tuning in. Check out Wonderman Comics. I'm excited to go through. I want to create a character myself, so I'm looking forward to seeing that template and brainstorming, putting a project together, maybe drawing something with my son, and inspiring future, comic creators. Maybe we see something on Marvel and it turns into a big, hit show or something later on down the line. But thank you guys for tuning in. Give me some feedback. Let me know how we can make the show better, audio, shots, anything like that. And if you want to be a guest on the show, feel free to hit me up. IG, YouTube, email, whatever works. Hope everybody has a good day. Thank you.
Peace.